All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Yeah.
Oh, hit it too fast. Welcome back to He's on Fire podcast. How's everybody doing out there? Jay, how are we doing today?
I'm doing all right. How about you, Evan?
Man, hanging in there. And we are joined today by Joe Healey. Joe, how we doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, buddy. Hey, fellas, how you doing?
We're doing good. It is the midst of bowl season. I'm excited for tomorrow's game. I'm less excited than I am for, even the last time we were in the Vegas Bowl, which was 3 or 4 years ago when we played Fresno State. It just seems like bowl season is coming down a little more every single year. I listened to you and Brad on Speak of the Devils podcast talk quite a bit at this at length, and you guys were basically saying it's more like a preseason game, if you will, or a glorified, not Pro Bowl game, if you will, but kind of like the way they play the Pro Bowl or the NBA All-Star game. It's just kind of throw the ball out there, see what happens, and it doesn't really matter anymore. Do you get the sense that it doesn't matter, or do you get the sense around the program that, no, this is still a bowl game, this is still a thing we want to win, and it does matter?
The thing about it is there's just a lack of consistency, and I think that's across the board because, you have some teams where players aren't opting out. You have some where they are, and that's a whole topic that I'm not going to fault players for doing so. Now, to certain degrees, which we'll probably talk about, so that's what's different about it is, again, you'll have whole teams, especially ones that are coming maybe from the group of five or things like that, where there's more on the line and more for them to establish. So you have them highly motivated, but then you might have a Power 5 team, especially something like, an ASU, where they fell a couple games short of what their ultimate goals were. So again, it doesn't mean quite as much. Right now we're looking at a game where that's happening with an Oregon team that's getting smacked around by Oklahoma, that is not playing at 100% there. So it's just weird how things have transpired in the last 5 years or so, because it's still a pretty new thing, the opt-outs and so on. I think back to 10, 15 years ago, a postseason game was like a treat. It was a bonus, and you got up for it. I remember, an ASU beat Purdue in the Sun Bowl. And Sun Bowl's not a massively prestigious game. That was awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a great game. Like I was fired up for that. I was on the sideline because I was working at ASU at the time for the Insight Bowl against Rutgers. I mean, you look back at it and you think if you put that bowl game, you transpose it into today, people wouldn't care that much. So that's the thing that's tough about it, is it's just not what it used to be, and it's just the business nature of the sport. And it's the sad thing is it's pretty much here to stay.
Is it watered down? Before we get into it, I just I want to pop this open so I don't annoy anybody with it or throw anybody off track. But I just wanted to. It's still holiday break. I wanted to enjoy a nice drink while we have this conversation, so I'm going to be pouring myself a Belgian white ale here. So, but is it watered down? Is the bowl game, the bowl madness, all that stuff watered down? I mean, did you watch Middle Tennessee Tech play whoever Technical Institute? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, my finger's been way off the pulse this year, which is kind of strange. But that's another thing that's different about it. I mean, I remember days 20, 30 years ago when there were I think 18 games, something like that. So now it's everybody who's at least 500, and with COVID and other things, you're getting some teams below that are getting into bowl games. So, and that's fine, and it's cool to get other teams a chance to play, and more football is better than less football. So that part of it, as far as the amount of teams that are involved, not nearly the biggest issue when it comes to all this. But it's a tough deal, because when you want to watch the best of the best, I mean, hell, we're going to be sitting here on New Year's Day about to watch the Rose Bowl, and you have an Ohio State team with some of their best players that have chosen to opt out of the most prestigious football. I mean, outside of the Super Bowl, you ask somebody to name a prestigious football game, they're going to say the Rose Bowl, right? I mean, I just don't get that train of thought. So it just takes away some of the value of it, because, and you get Kenny Pickett for Pitt, who's playing in a New Year's game. He's not going to be playing. And again, I get folks have to protect their future and their pro prospects, but as a college football fan, man, that really takes away from it when you have a team that's worked the entire year, win their conference, and they're going to go play with their backup quarterback. And I mean, it's just a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, I completely agree. I used to, when I was single in my college days and even afterwards, I used to wake up on Saturdays early, make a whole bunch of bacon, enjoy a cocktail in the morning, and I'd watch football all the way until Arizona State was done at 1 a.m. the next morning, whenever that was. And when it came to bowl season, I had my DVR set. I was ready to watch as many games as possible. In the last 3-4 years, it's just become less and less and less prevalent. I'll watch the Rose Bowl. I might go out, watch the Outback Bowl. Obviously, I'm going to watch as many New Year's Six bowls, but all the other bowl games, it just feels like let's get to the bowl game and deal with everything else after the fact. And I remember even Todd Graham and Dennis Erickson speaking about it. They said it was more important to get to the bowl game so that we had these extra 10 to 14 practices for all these young guys. And now it's like, well, now we have this game for all these young guys to play in because you have the transfer portal opening up and being free agency. So not only are you going to deal with people graduating, not wanting to get injured, you got all these transfer players that are going to leave right after the season and not stick it out through the bowl season. So now it has become the preseason, the post preseason bowl game, whatever you want to call it. It's just not as fun. Either way, I'm looking forward to Arizona State making it because for me, and I'm sure for you, it's important to us. It's fun for the fans. It's important. I want to get a 9th win. When was the last time we got 9 wins, right? It's been quite a few years. We need to see some consistency out of Jaden Daniels. So him coming out and having a great game, I think, is important just for him moving forward and the public perception of Jaden Daniels, who, quote unquote, can't throw for 300 yards. And then you want to see a guy like Daniel Ngata go out and have 120-yard, 2-touchdown game. How awesome would that be to see him do that? And then see a defense just stuff. What's the guy's name? Braylon Allen. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be great to have all these guys that were out, chose not to play? You get young guys coming up, and he ends up with 68 yards or something. Those are the storylines that I'm looking for going into the game, the things that I'm really excited about. Herm Edwards, I want to ask you about him and what everybody thought should happen isn't happening and him being fired. So him coming back and winning this game, I think it's very important for Sun Devil Nation as a whole. What are your thoughts? What are you going to be looking at for the game tomorrow? And then talk about Herm Edwards a little bit at the end.
Yeah, I think it's tremendously meaningful. I mean, obviously there are a lot of fans that are disappointed that the season didn't result in a division title or a conference title or Rose Bowl or any of those lofty goals, but there's still a lot on the line. Like you mentioned, 9 wins is not something that happens all that often around here. If they were to get to 9, I think that would be, something like only the 5th time this century with 9 or more wins. You got 3 10-win seasons, and ASU won 9 in 2004. That Sun Bowl we're talking about, that was their 9th win that season. So that's something, again, doesn't happen all that much around here. And how it will need to be done if it's done. Wisconsin has the number 1 total defense, the number 1 rush defense in the country. That is a severely tough matchup for ASU. Losing Rashad White due to an opt-out, Chip Trayanum transferring to Ohio State. Daniel Ngata has a ton of talent, and I've always wanted to see him get more time. It's going to be his opportunity. That's a lot to throw onto his plate there to play that defense. And Wisconsin, to my knowledge, at least at this point right now, which day before the game, you think it's not going to change. They don't have anybody opting out. They don't have any marquee transfers at any positions. They have a safety that got hurt in the season finale, so he's out. But other than that, all those guys that made up that number 1 defense, they're playing in this game. So they're gonna let Jaden Daniels throw as much as possible until he proves that he can. So if he can do that, you got a lot of things that are going to send some momentum or have the opportunity to send momentum into the offseason. If Jaden Daniels has a good passing game, that's going to let a lot of people breathe a little easier about the future for him. If Daniel Ngata is able to have a solid game, then that's something that you feel like, okay, ASU can offset the losses of the running backs that won't be on the roster next year. You have some of the younger players on defense because you've got 3 starters on defense that are opting out in the 2 starting cornerbacks and Darian Butler. So again, you're going to have the guys that are coming back. There aren't really a lot of outgoing seniors that are playing in this game. There are a few: Tyler Johnson, DJ Davidson, Kellen Deesh. There are some there, Curtis Hodges, but the majority of what you see on the field coming up tomorrow is going to be what's coming back next year. So that's a good opportunity. But like you said, yeah, it's something that a lot of these bowl games are really becoming kind of a glimpse into the next season, a look into the future, because some of those, it's almost like anybody who's got any sort of pro prospect has a higher chance to opt out. Like, I was legitimately surprised that DJ Davidson and Tyler Johnson are playing. It used to be kind of the first round picks, the N'Keal Harrys, those sort of players. That makes sense. They don't play in a bowl game. Obviously a little bit different these days. And it's not just with ASU. Wisconsin is probably in the minority as far as having their entire team playing in the game. So as far as that's concerned, it's again, what I'm looking for tomorrow. You got to try to be creative offensively. I'm curious how much success ASU is going to be having just traditionally running the ball, so they're going to have to be creative with that. I want to see Ricky Pearsall get a lot of touches, like in the double digits, because they've used him on the ground a little bit, and obviously he's been the most consistently reliable pass catcher at wide receiver, and he went out on a high note, at least to end the regular season with the game against U of A. So that's someone I'd like to see get involved even more than he has been. Defensively, if ASU is going to have a chance in this game, it's going to be with the defense attacking, because they've shown the ability to shut down some teams, and you got to do that. It's a tough. Braylon Allen it's a tough. Like, he's a 17-year-old, 240-pound, 6'2" running back that ran for over 100 yards in 7 straight games. So the dude is just a beast. So it's a tough matchup for the players that ASU will not have on the field. Now, as far as Herm Edwards and the president in the future, there's nothing. His status to me is just completely predicated on the outcome of the NCAA investigation. And so since there's absolutely nothing that's been conclusive about that, ASU, isn't forced to, nor really should they make a change, because I don't know what you're going to get in his place with that still lingering over things. It would be hard to attract a high caliber replacement head coach when you say, yeah, well, we may find out in a year that we have scholarships reduced, or, recruiting sanctions, or bowl postings, that sort of thing. So they're right on the precipice of what I've felt is the bare minimum of a even remotely successful year, which would be 9 wins, because ASU won, we're throwing last year out the window. ASU won 8 games in 2019. So if you win 9 this year, okay, that's basic math. 9's better than 8. Again, not everybody's going to be
7 wins in 18, 8 wins in 19, and a bowl win. Last year doesn't count, and this is potentially 9 wins in a bowl win.
So it'd be small increments. Now, a lot of folks were expecting kind of that, rocket jet fueled trajectory to take them into the Rose Bowl, and there was a point in the season where I was on that level as well. But
you mean first half of Utah?
There you go. Yeah, up until I for the life of me, I don't know what in the world I like that. Whatever happened at halftime was like a program killer.
Rob Likens came back. Came back, and
dude. I'll let you joke about it. I love the dude, but yeah, just like things were from that point forward, like it's impossible to put into words, because it was just a team that just didn't have the fire. I've never seen a team from one half to the next just turn things off. It was, obviously Utah turned into an incredible team, and with everything that's going on, especially with what they're doing and with what Ohio State's doing, I hate to say it, but you got to think they've got a really good shot on New Year's Day. So yeah, if ASU can go out there and get a win, that's a real big deal. We still don't know what the future holds, because if the NCAA drops a hammer on them at any point, then you got to do what you got to do. That is the most nerve-wracking and annoying and frustrating thing about this whole circumstance is, we've seen these NCAA things go on in various sports and teams. Obviously, U of A and others have had it in basketball and that sort of deal. It takes years. There's no guarantee that it'll be resolved by this time next year, and that's not good. And that's where things start to take an even greater nosedive, because recruiting gets impacted. And yeah, you can cushion that blow if you have 1 year where you're impacted, but if you're stacking those up back to back, then that's something that takes a while to get going. So, was never surprised that nothing happened with Coach Edwards, because it's just like, what can you do at this point? So it's the ASU's is kind of stuck in outer space right now until something happens.
Suck it up, right? We just gotta suck it up and deal with what we can deal with at this point. And it's frustrating as an ASU fan. You know, you're more into the program than I am. I have more of the outsider looking in, but been a fan for many, 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 many years, and I'm sure there's many fans out there that can speak to, you know, things like this. I mean, a lot of people wanted Herm Edwards gone just because of the way, you know, year 4 is supposed to be that year that you are supposed to take a leap. So, you know what? Yeah, for the record, this would be our 5th time since the year 2000 that we would have 9 wins or more. And this would, our bowl record could potentially be 6-9 since the year 2000. We're 5-9 right now. This is a chance to get to 6-9 and our 5th 9-win season in 21 years. So that's nothing to scoff at, but at the same time, yeah, we did have higher expectations. That Utah game, my wife won't let me live it down. She's actually leaving tomorrow to go to Pasadena with her family to watch the Utah game. They'll never, ever, ever let me forget about their Sugar Bowl win against Alabama in 2007 or 2008 or whatever it was. Yeah. But it's what you said. It was, you know, they didn't reach their expectations. They didn't get to the national championship game, so they didn't want to be there, and they were let down. And that's kind of where Ohio State is at. So I think it'd be really foolish for anybody to think that Ohio State's going to roll over them completely, because this means the world to Utah, the world to here. I've been listening to DJ and PK in the morning over here, and everybody is fired up. It's palpable here. Everywhere you turn, you see roses. It's a huge, huge deal for Ohio State. It's another season, right? Yeah. So anybody that thinks that Ohio State's going to roll over them, which they could, don't get me wrong, they could. I just think you're kind of kidding themselves, and I think it's going to be a lot better game. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Utah comes out 17-0 or 21-0 just right out the gate. I really wouldn't be surprised. Expect Whittingham to throw a bunch of crazy plays in there too. They got nothing to lose. They have absolutely nothing to lose. And
I'd imagine their fans are going to travel like crazy. I mean, under the circumstances, I'm sure it's going to be quite a partisan Utah crowd there.
You know, we actually buy quite a bit of extra tickets and stuff in case friends want to go to things out here, and we have no problem selling, you know, Real Salt Lake tickets or extra Utah Jazz tickets, concert tickets. We've had 2 extra Rose Bowl tickets. If anybody wants to go to the Rose Bowl, we got 2 tickets available. We've actually had a really hard time selling these, so I don't know if that's because of COVID and Omicron or anything like that, but you know, we're probably going to end up donating them, which is for a great cause for anybody that needs to go out there. But we've actually had quite a few issues selling them, and I've heard a lot of people not going to the game as well too.
Okay, wow. I mean, that's. I mean, obviously the reasons that you gave are sensible, but I would have expected folks to, I mean,
flock
if they're okay with, you know what I mean? Like if they're not very deeply against gathering, to, you know, not even think twice about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Utah's a red state. They don't care. So maybe it's going to a state where they have to wear a mask and show their COVID passport or whatever you call that. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I'm surprised that I haven't heard a lot of people traveling or want to travel just in my little Utah inner circle that I unfortunately have to live through. But it is all good. So going into the game tomorrow, what are you expecting on offense overall? You already hinted to the fact that you think we're going to have some trouble running the ball against, you know, arguably one of the better run defenses that we've seen in recent memory. Are you expecting Jaden Daniels to come out with 200 or 300 yards or 350 yards passing? Are you expecting trick plays, or are you kind of expecting old Herm Edwards run on first down, run on second down, hope that it doesn't get to 3rd and long?
You know, it's tough to say because it's kind of the options are limited. We've seen a couple games for ASU this year, especially UCLA and Washington, where ASU's opponent was very, very good defensively in one key area and very bad in another. You know, it's like Washington had the number 1 pass defense in the country at the time, but their run defense was an abomination. So we couldn't throw for anything, but Rashad White had a field day. I think it was the other way around UCLA. Granted, it was early in the season, where their run defense was very good, the pass defense wasn't. That was the game that Ricky Pearsall went nuts for 2 long touchdowns.
Yep.
With this, Wisconsin, you know, they're the number 1 defense in the country for a reason. and it's not one that is skewed because of one really good area and one really bad area. So just to kind of run up those categories of numbers, number one in the country in total defense, rush yards per carry allowed, second nationally, only behind Georgia in yards per play allowed. Let's see, take a look here. Third nationally in passing touchdowns allowed, fifth in pass defense. That's what I was getting to there. So they've got their top 5 in the nation in both run and pass defense. So yeah, you say number one in the country at run defense, like, all right, well, then you should be able to throw on them, or you're going to have to throw on them. But, you just come back with a number 5 in the country in pass defense. So you're just going to have to see some sort of creativity in the hope that Jaden Daniels can get some confidence in the pass game. Getting Curtis Hodges involved would be a big deal there because he's been a weapon this season.
Yes.
Like I said, Pearsall, I'm expecting to see him in a number of different ways, and you got to make the opportunities count. You can't have circumstances like we saw. It was more in kind of that center chunk of the season, especially that Utah game where receivers were dropping more passes than they were catching. So my hope is that Daniel Ngata brings something to the table that just surprises them. Maybe a lack of film on him can be a good thing. It's just a very tough task for anybody, even if Rachaad White were playing in this game, for him to go against the number one rush defense in the conference. Again, even if ASU had their full stack of running backs, that'd be difficult.
And O-linemen, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they're going to be down. You've got Donovan West that's out of the game due to injury. You got Jarrett Bell slated to start at center. Offensively, it's going to be a tough day. I mean, there's really no area where you say that ASU has an advantage. The offensive line should still be able to hold up pretty well. But man, Wisconsin is just, they've got some players at all levels. They've got this linebacker, Chanel, who was the linebacker of the year and a second team All-American, averaging over 10 tackles a game. They've just got dudes at pretty much every position on defense. So, Zach Hill's going to be tested. The players are going to be tested. Jaden's going to have to make some good decisions. He needs to take care of the ball. If he kind of gets back to that bad habit that he had for that stretch of games over the back half of the season where he's just good for one interception a game like he was, then, that's going to be trouble because ASU needs to take care of the ball. And not only that, but they really need to force some, we'll talk about this on the defensive side if we go there, but really need to be advantageous in not only forcing turnovers and not only having a turnover advantage, but trying to do so and make big plays out of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do expect a few different things, a few different wrinkles. I'm hoping that Herm Edwards can, loosen his reins a little bit on Zach Hill, and Zach Hill can kind of do whatever he needs to do to get the offense moving. And maybe instead of running a couple draw plays or screen plays, he'll actually want to go downfield a little bit more as well too. So hopefully he takes the chains off him, Herm Edwards, and they can just go out and ball, just go out and play, because we've been waiting for that breakout Jaden Daniels game, and this would be a wonderful game to let that happen. So before we go on the defensive side, though, JJ, do you have any questions for Joe going into this game right now?
Not necessarily questions. It's just like it's more like concerns of what we've seen this ASU team do. Just the inconsistency, the lack of urgency. And it all starts with Jaden Daniels. That's a good one. At the end of the day, he's been lackluster in some moments, and then like superstar-ish in some. So it's just like I don't know how this game is going to go tomorrow. Like you said, Joe, Wisconsin's one of the best defenses in the in the NCAA. You can't necessarily run on this team. They only allow 65 yards a game of running. And then passing is just as skewed. So,
and 16 points overall. I mean,
yes, 16 points overall. So, I don't know what Herm has drawn up, but I'm concerned, really. But this is Jaden's game to really show out and flourish. And I hope Herm doesn't have him on a tight leash. And I'm a strong believer of just balling out. I get the whole protecting your future sort of thing. I'm not going to play in the bowl games and stuff. like I do get it, but like I'm an athlete myself. Like I was at one point, and I think most athletes can relate. Like you want to perform and you want to do the best that you can to up your status, and so it sucks that Tatum transferred, and but hopefully Nagata can. Uh, is Nagata playing or White or both of them playing?
Nagata,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Hopefully, Nagata has a good game, like a breakout one. But I'm just more concerned that either ASU is going to get dog walked, or best case scenario, it's going to be a tight game. It's going to come down to who wins in the second half.
I hope it doesn't come down to special teams.
Oh yeah.
I mean, my hope, regarding Jaden Daniels is that there really is no uncertainty. He's coming back. They're clearly not going after a marquee transfer at quarterback. There were, rumors of him possibly transferring, or whether ASU would go the direction of, Spencer Rattler or whatever. Those kind of things were swirling around in the later part of the season. So you come into this game, and it's weird because in the same sense that there is a lot on the line, in another sense, you can kind of play with the nothing to lose mentality in some regards. Like if you're on offense, all right, screw it. Let's give it a shot. Let's try things that we haven't tried, because if you happen to drop the game, then so be it. There's, with all the other things that are going on, and the fact that it's a mid-tier bowl game, the difference between winning and losing is not something that is going to completely shatter the fan base. Now, granted, if you go out there and you get wrecked 49-3 or something like that, okay, that's not the narrative that you need. But I don't think it's an excuse or reason to play too conservatively or too tightly. Don't play not to lose, that sort of thing. Be aggressive in some regards.
It just seems like whenever we had a big game, minus the Utah first half, not only did we shoot ourselves in the foot, which we did all year, but we just, again, it feels like we handcuffed the offense. Right? And the games we had nothing to lose. Arizona game, Washington game, hell, the USC game. It looked like things were just rolling, especially that Stanford game on Thursday or Friday night. I think it was Friday night.
Yeah.
We were just rolling on things, right? But when it came to the big games, when it came to Utah, when it came to having to answer against Washington State, nothing was there. Nothing worked. And we didn't have the JJ, what did you call it? The sense of urgency. It never seemed like we had that this year. Do you think that was just that's Herm's makeup and they're taking off, they're feeding off the head coach, or what do you think that is? I mean, do you agree to a point?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been an MO of his, is to kind of play it in a pro type of thing where you keep these games close. That's why ECU just had this unbelievable amount of one-score games. At least it did entering this season. I haven't run the numbers including this season, but across the conference, ASU was way ahead of the rest in terms of the amount of one-score games that have happened in the last 2+ years since Herm came in. They've had some success with that. I think there were something like 9-10. I believe the number stands out to me that they played 19 games over prior to this season. There are obviously some this year. So
one this year, one possession game this year, which is crazy to think about, which is the Washington game. But
yeah, you have scenarios where they get out of hand. Obviously the Utah game, Washington State, Oregon State. I mean, you throw those games in there, and those are difference makers. So, again, when you're playing with limited options, who knows? Maybe we see some wide receiver that we haven't seen, and somebody gets a shot and just take one downfield. Maybe it's the only snap the guy's going to have for the game, but give it a shot. See if it works. I see no problem in some experimentation. It's like I said, there are things on the line, but it's just not that scenario where, and I hate to be moral victory guy, but if ASU comes out here and is competitive in this game, I think fans should be, to an extent, all right with that, and just let that be. It's not a good thing, but it wasn't a terrible thing, because I'm just the strengths of Wisconsin, really are concerning given where ASU is limited personnel wise. So
Yeah.
Yep.
You just want to see him let it fly.
But yet they're only a 6-point favorite. JJ pointed out in the private chat. Yeah, Wisconsin is only a 6-point favorite.
Which I
It's kind of insane.
Don't understand that. I honestly don't, because they dipped a little bit at the end of this. I mean, they had a 7-game win streak, and then they lost to Minnesota, which is a very
and
good
beat
defense.
Ranked teams, by the way.
Yeah, they beat Iowa. They had that rough start. They started 1-3, something like that. But they're playing Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame, teams that are pretty high levels. So the quarterback play for them is very iffy, but they don't need their quarterback to do too much. So that's going to be a thing. The quarterback numbers and tendencies. Mertz is not a runner, but as far as passing numbers and accuracy and things like that, fairly comparable with him and Daniels. So yeah, that 6-point spread. That's I would.
It's wild,
I'm
isn't
not
it?
a big betting guy, but that would be looking pretty good. I would feel pretty comfortable with Wisconsin covering that, to say the least.
Ooh, yeah. So you just said it right there. So you kind of touched on some defensive things, and I think I know where you're going to go with this because I listened to most of your most recent podcast with Brad, and it just looks like we got a lot of young guys that are going to be able to go out there and just, again, let it fly, and whatever happens, happens. Obviously, everything starts with Braylon Allen. Everything starts and ends with him. If you can hold him to under 100 yards, we're going to have a pretty damn good chance of winning. We talked about Graham Mertz just a few minutes ago, but he has very similar numbers to Jaden Daniels, 9 TDs and 10 interceptions versus 10 and 9 for Jaden. And he has just over 1,800 yards, and Jaden has about 2,100 yards. So they're fairly similar. I'm not too concerned about that, even though we are going to be missing a Chase Lucas and Jack Jones. Are you worried at all about we know about Braylon Allen, we know about what he's done, and we got to stop him, but are you worried about Wisconsin letting it fly at all on our DBs that are unproven to a point?
That's a possibility, but if I were Wisconsin and offensive coordinator and the folks making those decisions, I would watch the ASU film on what tight ends have done. They've got a first team All Big Ten tight end, Jake Ferguson, is their leading receiver. That's Wisconsin does. They're a team that has a very distinct identity. Been talking about Utah. They remind me of like a Utah, or kind of like Stanford used to be. They always have a very good running back. They will find one and they will make a superstar out of anybody. They're always going to have a massive and talented offensive line. Everybody on their offensive line got some kind of all-conference honors this year. And they very much more often than not have a very talented
and they go out and
get
steak after every game. Yeah,
exactly. Right. So or a bunch of cheese or something like that. So if ASU just focuses everything on trying to stop Allen in the run game, then you could see just another repeat of what we saw, with the trio tight ends against Utah, UCLA, even games that ASU won, Stanford. I mean, the tight ends, and it's not just this year. It's just always, it seems like it's always been an Achilles heel for the last several years. So he's not just a guy that's got some talent that maybe because ASU has not defended tight ends that he could have a big day. He's a guy that's already, a first team all conference caliber player that could go out and have 100+ yards. They've got 2 receivers that are, decent numbers in like the 30 to 40 catch range and the 400 or so yard range. Again, not too terribly dissimilar to some guy, maybe like a Ricky Pearsall statistically. But yeah, I would say, again, Allen is the number one guy they got to try to shut down. He's about a 240 pounder, used to playing Big Ten football. So you're going to have to wrap him up. You're going to have to get a bunch of guys on him. He can carry the load quite a bit. So that's not something that going to be easy to bring down, but if you focus everything on him, then Ferguson's the guy that's going to concern me at tight end, because again, that's been an issue for ASU for a very long time. And the receivers are talented and they have seniority. So to your point, the defensive backs for ASU, I think it's going to be Davis and Keon Markham, if I'm not mistaken, are slated to be the starting corners.
I like Tamarcus Davis though. I thought he's been good whenever he's played.
Yeah, for sure, and he's highly seasoned because he played, obviously this year, but also the games last year when Jack Jones was out. Yeah. So he's someone that has some starts under his belt. So that's not a bad guy to have out there, but it's hard to replace the playmaking skills of a Jack Jones, and no one's going to have the experience of Chase Lucas. Expected to have both typical starting safeties back there, so that's a good thing. So Yeah, I mean it's relatively simple in nature, in that it's not terribly complex. That you got to try to shut down the running game, but it is one of those ones where he might get his. It's going to be tough to keep him under 100 yards, but you don't want to be those back breaking ones. You don't want him just
third and sevens, the third and longs,
or all these conversions and things like that. Try to keep it in check as best as possible, and then you just want to get to the point where they need to throw the ball a little bit, because again, Mertz has been he's been interception prone. I was looking at it, his numbers are kind of skewed. I think he threw something like 4 or 5 of his interceptions were in the first few games of the season. So it's been a little bit better as it's gone on. But I think he has also like 7 or 8 games under 200 yards. I mean, not terribly dissimilar to the back half of the season for Jaden Daniels, so stuff that we're pretty familiar with. But if you can get him into some turnover situations, because we've seen ASU have success with that in the last few games, whether you're talking about, like fumble returns that Tyler Johnson's had, or even like the block punt that happened against Oregon State, so in pick 6 for Jack Jones against the U of A. I mean, you've had some playmaking turnovers or turnover type of situations happen in these games, and that's what ASU is going to need. They're going to have to manufacture field position and points, because Wisconsin's also one of the top teams in the country in time of possession, which is natural when they run the ball the way that they do. So they're going to have to be creative with that.
And I'm looking forward to it, and I am here for it. This is going to be a lot of fun tomorrow night. This is obviously a chance for the Sun Devils to get their 9th win, which would be one of their top 5 seasons since the year 2000. Their 6th bowl win since the year 2000, which would take us to 6-9 in that span. So this isn't just a slack game, and I think it would go a long, long way for just the perception of the state of the program for a lot of Sun Devil fans to come out with a win, or at least not get dog walked, at least lose to a last-second field goal or something like that. Leave us with a good taste in our mouth, right? That's what we're looking at. Because honestly, even if we would have lost the Pac-12 championship game, that would have been considered a failure as well, too, just considering everything else that's going along with the program. So before we switch gears to some ASU basketball, do you have a score prediction? I have one. I'm going with 34-20 Wisconsin, unfortunately, and I think we score a touchdown at the end to get it to that 20, because I personally just don't see it right now. I'm a believer. I'm going to believe. I'm going to have my ASU stuff on tomorrow, and I'm going to go crazy. I'm smoking a meatloaf and everything for the game. I'm picking 34-20. Do you have a score, Joe? And then, JJ, I'm going to get to you with a score.
I think that I went with – I'll stick with what I went with. I'm not changing it from what I said on the podcast a couple of days ago. I think it was 31-14. I just think it's going to be tough for ASU to come up with points. They're going to get to 20 or higher, much less, to win the game. They're going to have to get some, defensive points or own field position in a few instances by way of turnovers. So I think it's just going to be one where maybe it's a little bit close throughout. Maybe they stay competitive, that we, some things that we maybe like the Oregon State game where, hey, there was a point in the fourth quarter where it could have been a 1-score game and they just stretched it out. So yeah, I am going with a double-digit win for Wisconsin.
What are you eating and what are you drinking tomorrow night for the game, Joe?
That is a good question. I bought myself some Christmas Lagavulin scotch, but I happen to have drank all that, so I might have to either reload on that one because I got like
life is hard.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's like an $80 bottle, so that's one that's only every so often good holiday thing. So we'll find some kind of whiskey, I'm sure. Going to Buddy's house, we're going to be barbecuing something. I don't think we're going the smoke range. I think folks have stuff to do where we unfortunately can't put hours into it before we're rolling. So it might just be normal football barbecue, brats, burgers, stuff. I mean, not that there's anything wrong.
Nothing wrong with that. Get a good brat in you and some whiskey. You're gonna have a hell of a time. Today was my last day at my job, and I started a new one on Monday. So
there you go.
I got nothing to do tomorrow. I do have little man because my wife is traveling to Pasadena starting tomorrow, and to enjoy all of her festivities with her family. But yeah, that is my plan. JJ, what do you got for us? What's our score going to be tomorrow? You were very optimistic about the Cardinals this year.
Yeah.
So do you have any optimism coming our way, or are you just going to be a Debbie Downer?
The 6-point spread is really bothering me. I wonder if all three of us are missing something that the bettors are seeing. I'm gonna go 28-21. Close game. I think Wisconsin.
Arizona State,
scored.
right?
No, I'm going Wisconsin.
Oh, shit.
Now, the only thing I could think of is because wasn't there some like blurb about Wisconsin having like a COVID outbreak like on their campus, and
their athletic
that,
director, I'm looking at their page right now. Their athletic director is going to miss the bowl game, but that was 6 days ago. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. Let's everybody be checking Twitter tomorrow too, because with the way the Holiday Bowl and everything went down, like God, who knows what's going to happen. So check Twitter tomorrow to see if it's even going to happen. Knock on wood. But go ahead, JJ. I didn't mean to interrupt you. 28-21, you were saying.
Yeah. So I'm leaning towards 28-21. I think the game is going to be kind of close until end of the third, top of the fourth, and I think Wisconsin might pull out and just secure that win. I think ASU defense is going to be physical. I can't really say much about the offense really if Jaden Daniel doesn't have that urgency. But I like Ricky Pearsall. He is a playmaker consistently. So if he's wide receiver 1 and Jaden Daniels looks for him and doesn't throw up junk balls and force things, I see ASU keeping this game close.
Guys, let me pop out for a second. I got something at the door, but I'm going to be right back. And we'll keep going, all right?
Yeah, absolutely. And while he's gone, I do want to say, if Case Hatch comes off the field at all on offense, I'm going to be absolutely pissed. Even if we're in 10-man formation, right? That means four wide receivers and 1 back. He needs to be that back. Yeah. He needs to be back there, and he needs to be the one guarding the backside of Jaden Daniels. He needs to be the one picking up blitzes. Throw him in tight end a few times, for crying out loud, just for the blocking purposes. I know Curtis Hodges has done his thing. Dude, give him the ball. Let him score a touchdown. He better not come off the field, period, on offense. I want to see Case Hatch out there the whole time. And then on the defensive side of the ball, man, blitz the hell out of them. Evan Fields is back. You mean for the safety for the Cardinals?
Oh no.
Evan Fields is the dope wide receiver or safety in the back end.
Yeah.
He's back. Jack Jones and Chase Lucas, the cornerbacks, are out. I'm less worried about the cornerbacks. Evan Fields is going to have a field day, no pun intended. He is the dude that's going to pick up all the slack, much like Jalen Thompson or Abuda Baker, and he is going to be able to fly up the middle, make those tackles in space, make those tackles for losses, and he is going to have a big game. I promise you. Watch out for Evan Fields tomorrow. So, man, I want this win. I really want this win. The more I think about it, the more I want it. Once we got this invite, I really wasn't too worried about it. I was like, okay, we're playing Washington or Wisconsin, whatever. We're gonna go in there. We'll try to make it a game. But the more I think about it, the more I think it's really important for this team, especially moving forward. Jaden Daniels coming back, Herm Edwards coming back. We got a new running back, Tevin White, 4-star, that actually looks really legit if anybody watches any of his highlight tape. So I think he's going to be able to make a really good pair with Daniel Ngata, and who knows what other transfers we can bring in. I'm not too worried about the running backs. I think the wide receivers are going to take the natural progression forward. It's all on Jaden Daniels, and he needs to come out and he needs to throw 300 yards, man. Throw for 300 yards this game. This is so important. I'm not trying to set up, if he throws for 250 and we still win, like that's a bad thing. I'm not trying to say that or anything. I just think for the perception of everything. And JJ, you've been on this Arizona State ride with me, and I want to talk just, a handful of minutes on basketball and baseball real quick for ASU. But you've seen the disappointment in this team. You've seen the talent. You've seen how we've been able to lose these games. From an outsider's perspective like you looking in, do you think this is a big game for Arizona State, considering the recruiting violations and all that are still out there? And for Herm Edwards, perception, is this a big game for ASU?
Absolutely. It's like we've talked about like all season long, ASU just isn't like one of those schools that gets the national attention and all this stuff. So you just have to pick up the pieces as you go. And this ASU roster going into the season was very stacked from top to bottom, defense and offensively. And the first 3-4 weeks I saw Jaden Daniels, I was really impressed. And with the running back room as well, with Nagata and Tradum and Rashad White, like then Chase Hatch, my favorite player on this squad. Like this team, this team going into the season was stacked, and it's like definitely it's been disappointing with the losses against Utah and BYU. Yeah, Case, my fault, but yeah, just for the reputation of Herm, the ASU program, and then just the ASU followers, I think just everybody sort of needs this game just for mental clarity and just their mind off all the BS Herm has put through this whole ASU organization. So yeah, of you guys for sure, if ASU loses but goes out swinging and it's a very competitive game, that's a moral victory. And I think so,
because the worst thing that could happen, and it's not implausible, is just apathy. Not people swearing and cussing and getting pissed off at a game that you should have won or whatever the case may be, is that people say, yeah, they're down 14-0, 6 minutes in the game. This is what I saw coming. I'm going to go do something else. And for the next 8 months of time, that narrative is what prevails in addition to things with the NCAA. So there are folks that are probably going to be apathetic until proven otherwise, because they gave up at a point I'd say is premature, but they did. So again, you're going to have some negative people. And that's what you want to, because that's obviously worse. You want to see some kind of fire, be either excited about it or be mad about it, have some energy. But when you're just in that gray area of apathy, that's a problem, and that's very possible.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard while you were gone. I don't want to see Case Hatch off the field on offense. If we're doing a 10-man formation with 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 running back, he needs to be the running back there. Even if they don't plan to run it off, he needs to be the one blocking. Even put him at tight end. I know Curtis Hodges has been good, but put him there. I think Evan Fields is going to have a huge day, because when DJ Davidson, the big boys up front, are there, the linebackers have been a little on the iffy side. He can fly up there. He can make those tackles for losses, those tackles in space. I think he's going to have an amazing day. And then I just don't want to see us going down at any time in the game, and we're going to, and Herm Edwards just be like this.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want to see. I want to see some damn fire from that sideline. So we'll see what happens. We kind of know the narrative of ASU, but I still believe, and there's no reason why we can't go in and we can't take that W and get our 9th win of the season. So moving on to Arizona State basketball, we've been on a weird cancellation game before Christmas. COVID things going on with UCLA and USC, so we haven't been able to see the team of late, which is probably good considering we need as much practice time as possible. But what have you seen from Bobby Hurley's squad so far this year? I've seen a lot of, grit, determination, fight, and some of the offensive things just hasn't worked out. Most of all with Marion Jackson. Everybody kind of thought he would be the dude to go in, and he's just shooting like 24.5%, 25%, something like that. He's just not having the type of season that we expected. But the fight, the grit, the determination, the defense has been there more so ever before in the Bobby Hurley era. We just haven't gotten a lot of the results that we wanted so far. So what have you seen going forward with this team? Do you think that we're going to have good things to look forward to in Pac-12 play? Are we looking at a sub 500 team? What do you think, Joe?
It's such a tough call. I mean, we still haven't seen the team in its entirety, and I don't think we will, because I guess is it official that Bagley's not going to play for the rest of the season?
Hasn't been there. He expects him at some point.
Oh, yeah, so it's kind of vague, but it's something where you almost say that just to kick the can down the road a little bit. But you had all those issues in the first chunk of games where you had people that had COVID contact tracing, and others had some disciplinary issues that would just like a guy's out a game here, a game there, and you can't get that rhythm going. And that's something you desperately need when you have a team that is comprised by a lot of newcomers, a lot of talented newcomers, but a lot of newcomers. It's been a weird roller coaster so far, because you had those heartbreaking games. I mean, I was there at that Riverside game. The guy makes
bless you.
Unreal. And then, I mean, the San Diego State game, you get a good look at the end, and you have, if just one or two things go your way, you win that, and those are difference makers as well. And you're looking at a team and then obviously that San Francisco game was a close one as well. Things went so terribly over the Thanksgiving holiday. I mean, you look at those, and they were barely competitive in a lot of those games.
Yeah.
But then you get back, and then you have that 29-point game. I mean, that Washington State game, you think like, okay, this is really like that day. Scoring 29 points after having lost 4 in a row, and all 3 of those games again in the Bahamas. Not feeling good.
I was done after that, Joe. I was done.
But then, things spin around, and you get that 3-game stretch, and you beat Oregon, and then, a GCU team that's an NCAA team, and that's kind of a mini rivalry game in itself. And then you go on the road and you beat Creighton. I mean, it's so it seems like just about anything is possible. So that's what's so unnerving about it, is because, if you can get some of these guys going, and someone like Jackson, I mean, he's not going to pull the plug on him. He's someone that's just too established that you figure he's going to give him a lot of slack to be able to keep shooting, to try to get some rhythm going. And he helps the team in other ways. He contributes, his
hell of a defender.
Yeah. And, he could rebound the ball, like his box score. If you take out the points, obviously that's the biggest deal, but there are other things that he's doing. So if they can just get that consistency and keep the same guys in the lineup, obviously that's been better over the, most recent stretch of games versus the first 4 or 5, then they could possibly put something together. Now, as far as being high level competitive in the conference, I mean, you've got a few teams that are really way above the rest, so ASU is going to need to take care of business, which obviously didn't look too good in the early going there against Washington State. So it's I have no idea, and it's hard to even really put into words. But yeah, if you can get somebody like Jackson and some of the other players, if the shooting can improve by a few ticks, you don't have to be lights out.
That's right.
You have the way the defense is playing, and again, you have these. I'm just looking at it now. You got, they played in 3 games that were either two 1-point games and 1 2-point game, all or at least losses among their losses. 2 of them were by 1 point and 1 by 2 points. You got to be able to close out the close games, especially against competition that you should be beating. So yeah, I'm real eager to see, because you don't want it to be like a microcosm of last year, and the way that COVID is impacting sports now, where if that throws off the rhythm even more, because obviously basketball was impacted last year, just like football was, that threw things off completely. If that happens, if those rhythm things continue to fall out of line, it's just going to be tough for them to get it together. But if they can get some consistency, stay in the court, then there's some hope there. They've shown flashes. I mean, that 3-game stretch shows you they have the ability to be a competitive team in the conference. Maybe somewhere in the midway range of the conference there. It's at this point it is still a significant unknown for sure.
I completely agree. And actually, they play this Sunday. They play at Cal. I'm wondering if that was that got game?
Moved from that got moved because they had the 2 games they were supposed to play.
UCLA and USC, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember folks, it's funny in hindsight, because a lot of ASU fans were kind of complaining to an extent about, they're playing at UCLA on New Year's Day. What if ASU's in the Rose Bowl? That kind of thing. So yeah, that got moved. I don't know when it was supposed to have been, because I think I'm looking at their schedule and they've already adjusted it. But yeah, it was supposed to be a little bit further down the road, so they bumped that Cal game up.
Okay.
So they're not going to be sitting around for too terribly long. But then, I mean, you look at that, and I mean, they've only got 3 games in the first 13 days of the month, if the schedule is correct and holds true. And 2 of a couple of them are at home, but you get that. It's important to get that Cal game. And I'm sure this is a big reason for it, because you can't have them sitting out for,
3 weeks.
Yeah. That sort of thing. And then add to it, hell, they had a game canceled because of a power outage.
Yeah.
That Florida A&M game. So, it's showing up from all angles there. But yeah, you can't go into a U of A game even if it's at home. Yeah, without having played for 4 weeks there, which is what it would have been if you don't have that game in there.
And for the record, you know who San Francisco's only loss was to?
The GCU.
Go figure, huh? Well, before we get to baseball real quick, was that GCU game just a little, I'm not going to curse on here, say what I'm really thinking, but that was a little smug, nose up to GCU a little bit, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And that's interesting, between them and ASU. It's one of those things where I know a lot of people want to keep the game going, and I'm veering, like, for last year, I thought I was in the camp of thinking it's a no-win situation for ASU to play them. Now, that they're establishing themselves a little bit more than, so be it. But, it was good to get that one. That's one where you can't lose to them. You just can't, especially with them having a couple transfers from ASU, of course. So, and a lot of local kids, naturally. So that's one that, like, this year, especially because they had Tayshaun Cherry, they had Holland Woods, even though Holland Woods is only here for.
I have nothing bad to say about Holland Woods.
I don't know. He's a heck of a player, and Cherry's one that I liked him when he was here, and I liked his fire and that sort of thing. It just was his undoing. Like, I thought that he would be able to get it together, and it just didn't happen. And it's
rejected.
We're not going to tolerate any Tayshaun Cherry talk on this podcast.
There you go. I'm good with it.
Real quick, and then we'll let you loose. Thank you so much for joining us. The ASU baseball program made a big adjustment, hiring Willie Bloomquist, former Arizona State great and Arizona Diamondback legend. Not really a legend, but one of my favorite players. And we still have a stud in the lineup by the name of Ethan Long. I'm sure you've been around the program a little bit more than I have. They've had a few things going on at the ballpark, a few scrimmages and whatnot. Do you see any difference between his predecessor and the way Willie Bloomquist is coaching his team now? Is there anything that might stick out to you a little bit at this point, even though no games have been played?
I mean, it's more in just kind of things that are being said. That he's going to run him pretty tough from what I've heard. And that's not necessarily to speak light of what Tracy Smith did, but I just think it's going to be something where they're going to try to step that up even more as far as, practices and all preparation and that sort of thing.
Like, are you talking about like in a Todd Graham sense where he's going to be more strict with them, or how do you mean?
I don't know if it's strict as far as conduct and behavior and that sort of thing, or strict in the sense of, if you make a mistake, I'm going to scream bloody murder at you or anything like that. I think it's going to be tougher. It's going to be more, whether the practices are tougher or that sort of thing. They're just going to come out. They're going to work them, which is something that is necessary. You've got a lot of new pieces. You got young guys. The last 2 years they've had a lot that's been lost to the draft. They got pretty wiped out this past year as far as I think just about everybody who was drafted signed, which is good for them. I mean, go make your money.
MLBU, we're that way for a reason.
Yeah. So the infield is where the attention is going to be. You've got. Obviously, well, wherever they end up slotting Ethan Long, which they could do a few things. Obviously, he DH'd last year. He was a relief pitcher to begin the year. That's what a lot of folks kind of forget, is that he wasn't even a hitter in the early part of last year as a closing pitcher.
And he was the backup quarterback. No, I'm kidding.
There you go. Yeah, hopefully we're at the point now. I mean, I still see some of it. Hopefully we're at the point where people don't think it's the same guy, because I you sometimes it's hard to tell, like, sarcasm and snark and things like that. But I had a lot of people who legitimately thought he was, and I get it, but yeah, it's not him. Hunter Haas is moving to shortstop with Drew Swift moving on to the big leagues. You still got Sean McClain in there. Connor Davis was transferred from Auburn last year. They really like him, but he had an ACL injury in fall ball last year, so he missed all the season. He's leader. He's a guy they're really excited to have back there. You got a few returning pieces, Joe Lampe, Kai Murphy, stuff like that in the outfield. The pitching is where they're just really going to have to replace some players. I mean, they had that ridiculous rash of injuries that, I think they had 3 or 4 guys that had Tommy John surgery last year, got their starting lineup wiped out, their starting rotation pretty wiped out early in the season. And then the ones that were their starting pitchers pretty much all left for the draft and signed.
Yep.
So, so you're really revamping things there. They've got some transfers. That's where I even need to familiarize myself more, because some of the names that I saw out there in, fall ball when I was just checking them out at some of the scrimmages are ones that, I wasn't terribly familiar with. So that's going to be that's just naturally going to be the question mark, because they've got to integrate guys into the system and find what they're comfortable with and what sort of structure they're going to have with the pitching. But they should be able to put runs on the board. Again, Long has what it takes, and he's a draft eligible sophomore. So this could be even though we've only got a small experience from him, it's very possible this could be his last shot with ASU, because if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to have the pro potential. I just encourage folks to get out there, because he wants to make it fun. He knows what this program is all about. And again, I am very close to Tracy Smith. His entire family value them, consider them very close friends. So none of the stuff that I'm saying in a positive way about Willie Bloomquist is any sort of a negative comment against that. That was difficult for me to see them go and to not get the opportunity really to try to put things in the right direction. And that COVID season being missed with all that talent is always something that's going to just really, really, really sting.
Because we started off like 20-something-0.
So that was the year before, 2019. They went on.
That's right.
ASU was the last undefeated team in the country that year, and then you bring the vast majority of those players back. You lose Hunter Bishop that year, but you're bringing back Spencer Torkelson, Alika Williams, and all that stuff. That's why ASU, for the condensed 2020 MLB draft, I think it was 5 rounds. ASU had the most players picked of any college in the country, and let alone obviously the number 1 overall pick and another first-round pick. Gage Workman, Trevor Hauver, that sort of thing. So you had a ton of talent, and they started off well. They hit some skids early, but they were kind of catching their momentum. So that would have been something that at least you would have known. It's that ultimate what could have been situation, and you have some folks like myself that think that it could have been something very special. You have others that are a little bit more negative about it, but at least it's one of those deals. Kind of like this year, like if this football season for ASU. If COVID would have been crazy and canceled this football season, everybody would have been like, that could have been a Rose Bowl team. Okay, at least we got to see it play out and know what it ended up being. To have gotten that answer for that baseball season would have been.
Well, and I would go one step further with that basketball team as well too. When we had 8 or 9 wins that year before everything got shut down.
Yeah,
in a row.
Yeah, oh yeah. The ASU, it would have not shocked me one bit for ASU to go and have won the Pac-12 tournament there in 2020 when they're about to get running. But yeah, because things were going well. So eager to see Willie out there. He loves it. He's passionate about it. Beyond level, that's something that not many can match, and that's why they brought him in. And for the pro experience, that obviously he doesn't have the coaching experience, but where that may be limited, the passion for the program, the knowledge of the program, the experience at this level, playing at the College World Series, playing for, what do you play, like 14, 15 years in the MLB, something like that. Yep. He can get that done. And he's a great guy. He loves ASU, hates the U of A. We had him on our pep rally for the Alumni Association. We had him and Keith Bull on at the same time prior to the U of A game. And he's the kind of guy that is good to have, back in the program. So I'm excited for him. And I hope that folks come out and support from day one, because there are a lot of people that, again, this is not something that I agreed with, but of course there were a lot of people that were, clamoring for a change, and the change happened. It would kind of upset me a little bit if people said, okay, well, I got the change that I wanted, but I'm still going to wait till you get back to Omaha, and then I'll really jump into being a fan again.
Good point. Hell
yeah. And I think that there are going to be folks that have that disposition, and it's tough because it's like $10 to go to an ASU baseball game, or you can get like a season ticket, I think, for like $100, and you can see
tickets were $5 out here, free if I wore black, and if I went to the Utah Arizona State game, black on Fridays and red on other days, they were free for college baseball.
Yeah, so it's something that it costs about as much to get a beer at the game as it does to get in the game. That is not an exaggeration. They're like $9 beers, but So I hope that folks embrace it, because, again, there's a whole talk for another time. But the mentality with college sports is if you want your team to excel and to be great and to grow, you have to support them as the starting point. You can't wait for them, because if everybody's going to sit around at home and wait for things to happen, that's not how it's done. So
Auburn can go 4-8 and they'll sell out every game.
Yeah. Or, you see programs like Michigan when Rich Rod was there and it was an abomination, but they bounce right back and get things in a positive direction. Those ones can withstand some, they can absorb some damage. So I'd just love to see it. It's a fun thing. I mean, man, what's not to like out there? Muni is a beautiful ballpark. Once you get it's a little chilly in the early part of the season, and they're in February. I mean,
we had a snowstorm here, Joe. Come on.
I have to wear sleeves or like a light sweatshirt, when you get into like the Friday night games when you're in the later innings and it's like
rejected.
Just a little cashmere. That's it.
There you go. Yeah. But the majority of the season, I mean, it's obviously the reason why everybody lives in Arizona. You're having March weather, getting out at a baseball game. I mean, come on, what's not to like? So
hey, when I grew up there, nobody played football. It was baseball and basketball or nothing, and it was mostly baseball. And my cousin-in-law, Raleigh Fingers, I remember going to not opening day games, opening day spring training games as a guest with some of those, and it was just in the air. Baseball is just in the air in Arizona. I mean, anybody that's from there now, obviously football is really taking over at the high school level, but before that, man, it was baseball and basketball, and that's all
ASU,
it was.
And this year, an interesting thing is that ASU is going to host. It's going to be in Scottsdale, but it's the Pac-12 baseball tournament that is new this year. That has not been the case. Is going to be over here. So if it's something where ASU can make a run, have some momentum, you want to get some folks out there. I would anticipate it's at Salt River. If it's in Scottsdale, I'm just looking at the
Scottsdale. Yeah, it only says Scottsdale here is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, looking at the schedule, you'd think somewhere there, in any event. But again, more opportunities for folks to get involved.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about some of the Alliance football stuff. I just have one quick thing I wanted to pass by you. I totally forgot about this, and then we're going to bring on Ahmet. We need to talk about the Phoenix Suns game tonight. And JJ, you have a great title right there, 10,000 points for Devin Armani Booker. And we're going to get into that real quickly. But I had a thought about the Alliance football. And for those of you listening that are kind of unaware of what that is, that's basically the SEC added Texas and Oklahoma, so there's power conference that, the evil empire that everybody needs to take down. So to combat that, the Big Ten, ACC, and the Pac-12 all came together and said, hey, we're going to create an alliance. Nobody knows what that means. They came on a Zoom call. It looked exactly like you guys are seeing us here with 3 people on 3 different screens. It was a silly little Zoom call, and they said, we're the alliance. It was like some World Wrestling Federation thing that happens at the end of an episode and you have no idea what we're talking about until the next one comes on. Nobody knows what this means, but here's what we should do. College football and college sports is changing, right? You have the NIL, the transfer portal, giving athletes, all the credit in the world and giving them the chance to make money. Okay, so let's start thinking outside the box. Now we have this alliance, right? I'm all about keeping a lot of the integrity of the game in itself when it comes to rivalries. You keep the ASU Arizona rivalry. You keep UCLA USC, Michigan Ohio State, whatever it is. Keep those rivalries good and alive and well, right? Have your 3 or 4 games, preferably 4. Go to an 8-game conference schedule. Go to 4 games where you play out of conference. You play your Portland State, NAU, whoever it may be. Keep your rivalry game, maybe 1 or 2 in your Pac-12 or Big Ten, whatever. Why not see a schedule where Arizona State, in a course of 5 weeks, travels to Louisville, plays home to Penn State, travels to Miami, plays home to Maryland, and then home to UNC? Why not have a schedule like that? If we're really talking about real change and being innovative, why not just go all the way and have these games that people want to see? What's more fun, watching us play Utah, Colorado, Washington State, or going to play Purdue, Rutgers, and whoever else you want to throw in there? So just give me your thoughts on that, Joe. And this is for all of college football.
Yeah, because you wonder what it's going to get to here, even in maybe 5 years, if it's going to be 130 teams spread among like 4 power super mega conferences.
Exactly.
But yeah, to that point, because it's really an attempt to gain some national relevance and to help them in different ranking systems and things like that. So of course, if you're going to be playing, tougher opponents, I know like for the most part, like an example is Utah. Utah doesn't seem to always really schedule non-conference opponents that are that terribly difficult. I mean, if they're playing,
don't get me started with that topic.
Yeah, so that's something where, Arizona for the most part has been in a similar boat as well. ASU's done pretty good in that regard, playing some challenging teams. So it's all over the place. If you mandate it to where you put on some grid and you're playing one Big Ten team every year, one ACC team every year. You do whatever system to figure out who it's going to be. So if you have 2 of those as your 3 or 4 non-conference games, then that gives you some possibility there. And like you said, I know a lot. Some folks are talking about it going down to like a lower amount of conference games, especially if it's this mega conference where you're never going to play them all, right, or even a fraction of them. So why are you going to have an attempt to just maybe miss 1 or 2 like the Pac-12 does now? So they got to do something.
I don't see the benefit if we're going to have an alliance and we're going to have this. I don't see the benefit of playing USC and Oregon and Utah and all these teams in the Pac-12 all the time when we have Wisconsin, Penn State, and whoever else you want to throw in just sitting on over there. I just fail to see it when we're all about innovating and being newer, better, brighter, all that fun stuff. That's just me personally.
Yeah, I mean,
especially for the Pac-12, Joe. The Pac-12 has been down for how many years?
Oh yeah.
How much would this could potentially propel them?
Yeah, I mean, you got to do something to try to, and the first year commissioner, I know wants to make a splash, of course, and try to escalate things because you've had, 2 playoff appearances all time. One of them was a pretty open and shut loss by Washington to Alabama. You had Oregon in the very first year that went to the championship game. That seems like forever ago with Marcus Mariota. Just haven't really been in the equation. I don't even know if they've been like the last one out or something like that. Like usually it's pretty decisive that they're not going to the playoff, Again, the college football as we knew it even like 3 to 5 years ago, when we look at like a 10-year span from like 5 years ago to 5 years from now.
From Johnny Manziel to now.
Yeah. And then, we're kind of at that midpoint now to where it's like, okay, we're seeing some of the early goings in a variety of things, NIL, transfer, which, they have their good. They also have their bad impact on things. How those go on, what the game looks like 5 years from now is, I think, going to be a wholly different thing from what we saw for decades,
Yep.
And again, part of that has to be to try to keep up with the Joneses, and that's going to be the SEC and what they're adding with Texas and Oklahoma. Though, I get it from the perspective of those schools, but they're going to be hard pressed. I mean, Texas is having a hard time competing in the Big 12, so you throw them in the SEC, it's going to be a challenge. So they got to do something, and they got to shuffle the deck. And it could look like things that are borderline unfathomable now, like stuff you do on an NCAA video game where you just, change up the schedules and play who you want to play because it would be cool to go to that stadium, that sort of thing. So
why not?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see it unfold. That's another one of those things, but like we haven't heard anything about it. Like there's so many different storylines and important topics that affect ASU that are like, I really heard too much about that lately.
No.
I wonder what's going on with that,
Just keep that in mind, though. How fun would it be in October to be able to travel to Louisville, travel to Iowa, wave at the hospital at the end of the first quarter, or travel to a Miami game or even Florida State? I'd rather see Florida State, Miami, Louisville in our lineup than Washington State, Cal, and these other programs that we've been playing year in and year out. Just think about it. Just think about that and how fun that could be.
ASU's dominated the Big Ten and for a little bit in the last decade or so. Wisconsin, Michigan State, that sort of thing. So, it may not be a bad idea.
Exactly. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Where can everybody find your work?
At Joe Healey 42 on all social media, on devilsdigest.com, do a few things out there. And then speaking of the Devils, we're on pretty much all podcast outlets there. So check us out there and social media as well. We dropped our bowl preview that'll still be relatively valid for another under 24 hours or so. So check that out, and we'll be doing next week. I think we're doing our season awards. So we still got things going on, even though the season's coming to an end.
And that'll be a lot of fun. Everybody give it a listen to. Joe, you definitely stuck around a lot longer than I had planned you on, but it was a great conversation. I thank you so much for coming on, and we'll check you next time. All right, Joe?
All right, fellas. Happy New Year.
Cheers, buddy.
See you, Joe.
Right.
What a great conversation we were able to have. I am really, 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 really sorry, Amit, that you had to sit there and listen to that the whole time, not being an Arizona State fan. But Amit, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm waking up from my nap. Thanks for that little nap.
You're welcome. I enjoyed the hell out of that conversation because Arizona State is a passion of mine, as you can see with some of my my old school pennant that I got back there. Fun fact, the Phoenix Suns one right there is signed by the 1967-68 team. You can't see it because they were signed so long ago. They're all the signatures are right on that one, including the original Phoenix Sun as well too. So sorry about that, but you know what? That was a great conversation, and I could go another 2 hours talking about Arizona State athletics. But Amit, I want to turn it over to you because the Phoenix Suns had a game tonight. We finally won a game as an Arizona sports community, 115-97, and they just looked like they weren't going to go away. The Oklahoma City Thunder, by the way. And I wanted to bring up that Rob Edwards, a former Arizona State guard, got signed, played for 2 minutes and scored a point. But then you also had Lou Dort playing tonight. On the other side of it, Devin Armani Booker, 38 points, becomes the 7th youngest player to 10,000 points. So I want to talk about this game. Amit, do you think it was an important game to win? Was this just kind of go out, do our thing, get out without any injuries? Did you care if we win or lost? I'm going to get you full screen and turn it over to you to talk about this win tonight.
Yeah, no, I mean, this game was really about this team just showing their talent with the, deficiency we had with all the players that were out. They really didn't. It wasn't like, okay, like we're just going to come out here and beat this team. We're going to show, we're better than them. It was everybody was kind of coasting for the most part, except Devin Booker. He was in 2018. I'm playing a shitty team. Let me get 50 points.
Wait. You're saying that you thought the rest of the team come out and were just kind of like cakewalking through it?
Yeah. I mean, I saw Chris Paul. I told you this earlier. There was a lineup in the third quarter with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Cam Payne, JaVale McGee, and Landry Shamet. And Chris Paul stood in the corner and didn't even do anything at all for 4 or 5 possessions straight. And I'm not saying that he doesn't put effort. I'm not saying that he's that type of guy. I'm just saying he's out there on the court. I'm like, the game is close. And I know the ball is going through Booker, and then the secondary option is Shamet at that point. And then Cam Payne is just doing whatever he does when he's bringing the ball up the court. So, I just think that some guys are coasting. I think some guys are putting in effort. I think Jalen Smith has shown he's grown. One thing we have to put on a caveat on this game is that they're playing a bunch of G leaguers. So you can't really take Cam Payne's effort and say, well, okay, he bounced back from the previous games or previous week or 2 weeks where he's kind of pushed it a little bit too hard. Shamet didn't play well in this game, and he played a bunch against the same opponents. So, look, the thing about this team is that if you take away the right pieces, because James Jones built this team on depth, but if you take away the right pieces, things start to not fit together well. So if you take Aiden off the court with Crowder, and now Cam Johnson starting, JaVale McGee starting, and you don't have Kaminsky, you don't have Nader to fill the wing and the front court positions. Now it gets a little weird, and now you don't have that defensive presence in the paint that you need for 48 minutes, or at least, a good portion of the game. You don't get that now. You don't get that good scramble defense because now you have Jalen Smith out there either playing the 4 or the 5 and not knowing where to be on defense, even though he had a really good game. He blocked a bunch of shots. He was in good position, but at other times he's not when he's playing the 4. So, and then Shamet, I mean, I'm a little bit down on Shamet. Cause I just think it's not there. It's not, something's not working yet. Maybe it'll work, but it's not working right now for him. And I love to see Cam Johnson play through the foul trouble. You know, he kept that double-digit streak alive on scoring points, which he needed to do. But, you know, overall, I'm just, you know, we needed to win this game, and I thought we'd win. I didn't think we'd cover the 15-point spread. We covered it some point. Somehow at the end of the game, we covered it by, I think we won by 18 or 16. And then, you know, I mean, Ty Jerome, man, what the hell? This guy really has a vendetta against the Suns, apparently. Like, and you know, the other thing about this game I'll mention is that, I mean, if they really called fouls like the Sun, this would have been a really tight game, because Oklahoma City got fouled a lot going to the rim. Ty Jerome, some other guys, and they didn't call those fouls, but they called Booker. Booker apparently all of a sudden gets the superstar treatment when he goes to the rim, even though those are like basic fouls. They weren't even like superstar fouls. They were just like, yeah, he got fouled and you're shooting a ball, so you call the foul. And JaVale McGee got a bunch of, I don't know if they're superstar fouls or what those were, but he, you know, there was just a bunch of like either loose ball fouls or alley-oop ones where he got. It was a weird game. It was a weird game, and you knew that they would win. If they lost, it would be a complete disaster, because the last game was one of those ones where it wasn't like, if they lost the way that they lost that game, it's okay, because they should have lost that game in the first quarter, and they somehow came back. And this game is, if you lose this game, that's a fucking bad loss. Like that's like a Cardinals losing to the Lions loss.
Yeah.
Facts. I completely agree with everything that you were saying. I must have missed it because I was busy with my own work stuff today. I didn't know SGA wasn't playing. Is he in protocols, or why didn't he play?
Ankle. He's got an ankle thing. They played last night. That's the other thing, too. This team played last night with a short roster, so they should have beaten them by 30.
Yep. So I think what you're saying about them being just like walking through it, I completely agree, because I've seen that in the last few games as well too. But JJ, give me your take.
Yes. Like I agree with Amit. Like last night, or that Memphis game, and then this game, they were sort of just walking through, going through the motions and stuff. And a few players kind of stuck out on the laziness sort of side. You know, CP for a couple of possessions in a row, but Shamet just hasn't been clicking as of late. Hopefully that goes up soon. I'm still high on Shamet. I wouldn't say high, like I still have faith in him. I think the potential is there for sure, but I really want to get first I'll talk about the Memphis game. The Memphis game wasn't a big deal. Like last minute, DA's out, Jay's out. Monty I got pulled out as well, so it was a last minute kind of throw everything together. And then who's the backup coach? What's his name again?
Young, something Andrew Young or
Steve Young or something.
I don't know.
But like it's not like he did bad. He was just pulling players out too soon or too late, and it just kind of messed up the flow of the game. And we were down by 15 at one point. We brought it back. Book had a clutch ass 3 at the end, and then
we were down 14 with like 6 minutes left.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you complaining about? Like Booker's shot was clutch. He wasn't expecting to be that open, and he took it. And he shot with conviction. He made it. And then that put up shot, you couldn't have guarded that any better without fouling him. He traveled like a motherfucker. Or sorry, he traveled like crazy on that last play. You know, refs are like, there's nothing we can do. Like the refs can say like, oh, we messed up on the 2-minute report. It still doesn't change anything. So Kevin Young, Nick Young,
doesn't matter. The young guy.
But the Memphis game wasn't a big deal, and this game wasn't a big deal to me either. I think this game was a big deal just for fans. You know, we haven't had a win, it seems like, in forever. So, it was just mental clarity, moral victory, and then, you know, Book, seventh youngest player to hit 10,000 points, which is insane. I want to ask this question to you guys. Since you guys are older than me by a lot, like Evan's about to retire, and Amit, you're going to be going down to Florida soon, you know. But my question is Booker the best Sun of all time?
No. Not yet.
What makes you say
Not
no?
yet.
Because
He hasn't won it. He has. I would still give it to Steve Nash or Charles Barkley just because of the MVP lore. 2-time MVP with Steve Nash and taking 2 completely different types of teams to the Western Conference Finals, and his longevity of doing so and getting it to the playoffs for that amount of time. I give it to Steve Nash just because of that. He got us to the playoffs, 6 or 7 years in a row, and we were consistently the 1, 2, or 3 seed. Except for 1 year when we played against San Antonio when we got Shaq and we were like the 8th seed or something, but he still got us to the playoffs that many times. And there's a lot to be said for that. If we win a championship last year, I mean, some people would probably even say Chris Paul is the greatest son of all time. So I can't give it to him yet, but all the statistics and everything, they're there. I'm curious of what Roy and Vlogs and JV and them say in the chat as well too. Is he the best son of all time? What do you think?
Before you go, how close is it for you, Evan, between Nash and Booker? How close would you say it is?
So, I mean, I think it's
another 2 or 3 years off, but it's getting close.
I mean, so we're talking about, how many teams got to NBA Finals? So we saw Nash never got them there, even though we had the longevity, right? I look at it from a longevity standpoint because you got to be with the team for a long period of time. Charles Barkley was only here, 5 years?
Well, Book's on his like six or seven season, so I mean he's been here.
That's what I'm saying. And Jason Kidd was only here like 4 or 5 years. Nash was here 7 plus the other 2 or 3. So he was
2004 to 11 or 12.
Yeah,
how long was Amari here?
The years before that too. I think Amari was here for like 7 or 8 years. So, I mean, honestly, like if you ask me right now, with all the players I've seen, even with Nash, given where we haven't been able to go, and Booker did that in his first playoff performance, I got to say Book is the best.
But wouldn't you? But see, I would credit Nash for what he did, more so Nash than other players. I mean, I know Amari did his thing and Marion, and he needed the Tim Thomas 3 and all that stuff back in the day. But a lot of people would argue with you, Amit, that and they would say that Chris Paul was the reason that we got there too. Chris Paul was injured. There was a lot of weird things that went down. I mean, you needed the Valley-oop. You needed all that stuff. But all that considered, even though it was one playoff run, you still say Book?
Yeah, because Chris Paul missed the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals. And Booker carried that team. So, I mean...
Campaign didn't hurt as well. I mean, he had like 28 points or something.
Monster game. Yeah, I mean, Campaign had a monster game. But, I mean... Like that's where this is where it gets really dicey with Booker, because then we always like other fan bases or the national media downplays Booker's accomplishments, 100%, right? And this is where I'm standing on it. Like, dude, why can't we celebrate 70 points in a game? Why can't we talk about this guy doing a 40-point triple double in the Western Conference Finals, or the first guy to go back-to-back 40 points in the finals? Like, who cares, man? Like, the team didn't win, but the guy is a baller. He can't do everything, right? But he can certainly close out games. We saw him almost do it to Memphis, and we've seen him do it so many other times. So, I just the guy is so good, and he's so clutch, and he's so loyal to the city and the community that I'm just like, I can see Booker being here for a long time. Nash, he left the Lakers, went to Nets, and this is beyond. I mean, this is after. That's
a big bad taste in my mouth going to the Lakers.
The Lakers thing
drops him a lot
for me. Yeah. So.
What'd you say? Jay?
The Lakers thing drops a lot for me. Like because I just don't know how you go after so many years of going back and forth with them.
And he said it before he went. And the funny part is, I have this conspiracy that him and D'Antoni went there just to tank him. Because, like, they both were no good there. Like, they were terrible there.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, Nash went there and then he got paid. But if you go back and look, like, at his career assist record, he's 1 assist higher than, I think it's John Stockton. And then he had to play 10 games that season to get his entire guaranteed contract. So it makes me think that he just went there to get paid.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm. So what's your answer, JJ?
So where I sit right now currently, it's hard to argue with, the whole Nash Booker debate. Nash, he spent many years here. He was very loyal here. He playoff performer, game in, game out. He was consistent. He always had the team. He was a guy that was never hurt. He was very dependable and such. And it's hard to diminish that from what Booker has done because we just experienced our first playoff run in 10 years, and it took CP3 to come here, but not just because of the potential that the team had, but the potential that he saw in Book and them working together and playing together under Monty's system. And a lot of people like to put like a player's achievements just on the player, not necessarily the team. The Nash era teams had a lot of pieces, and it does kind of take down, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, Nash's sort of credibility. Like he had Amari, he had Marion, he had Jason Richardson, he had Barbosa. Like he had all these nice, great pieces for many, many years. And Booker, he's had to kind of like dig himself out of this hole that Robert Sarver has put this organization in. And to see just how he flourished after the 70-point game, him winning the 3-point contest, him winning NBA players recognitions for being an all-star, and just kind of shutting people up, and him being one of the clutchest players in the league currently. And just what he did in that playoff run last year is something you can't really compare. He took out the Lakers and the Clippers, and just basically our whole Western Conference, like everyone that we had beef with for the last 20, 30 years, the Nuggets, Clippers, Lakers, knocked them all out. We shut Jazz fans up as well because we made it to the finals, and in that finals run too, all the games were close. It's not like we got blown out in a couple games and we just choked 4 games. All of them were close, and just the Bucks, just everything just clicked at once.
Not supposed to stop Giannis when he's doing that. Nobody can, but
yeah. So it just came down to circumstance, and it's not like a Book fumbled a bag or anything. It's just not everything was clicking. But as where I sit right now, all the Suns teams I've watched, all the players that I've seen, I'm more on the Booker train than I am Nash, just because you see the dedication and loyalty that Book has for the city of Phoenix, and he's put up with a lot more shit than Nash has. I mean, maybe besides the Jason Richardson thing, but I'm just more on the Booker train, and him being on that list, the 7th youngest player to hit 10K. Look at the 6 other names, and you what else can you tell me? So I'm more. I think Book is for sure in the top 2. I'm not going to argue with someone that says Nash, but if a gun was pointed to my head, I would say Booker.
I don't think, and this is coming from a place of literally witnessing it, I don't think Booker has captivated the city of Phoenix quite like Charles Barkley and Steve Nash has. The Valley was crazy last year. I didn't experience that, so that could be part of it as well too. I'm sure it was wild. I mean, you see all the videos and the pictures and all that stuff, and it also was a COVID year. I don't know how much sway you can really bring that argument into it, but just from the outside looking in and then the inside being there, I haven't seen, the thing about Barkley and Nash is that they came in and made the impact right away. MVP seasons, first years, Western Conference Finals and Finals run, the very first year that they put on the uniform. I mean, when Barkley came in, it was the first year of the America West Arena too, right? So that was a big thing as well. And you got the new jerseys with Barkley. So I think just the way that it popped off, people might still sway that way. But with what Booker's doing and how consistent he is and how he plays and how he's, I don't want to call him a two-way player, but we're not calling him handicapped on offense anymore. or on defense anymore. He's not a minus on defense by any stretch
I
of
think
the
he's a two-way
imagination.
player. He made 2 blocks tonight.
Yeah, and he's coming up with steals. I mean, he's picking dudes' pockets now. He's showing the energy. I'm not going to quite call him a full two-way player, but you know what? You're right, Amit. Why not? You why not call him a two-way player? He is now. He's not just that dude. And when I was on a couple of ASAP Sports Network shows, shout out to our sponsor. We love everybody at ASAP Sports Network. They were saying Booker is just going to be that dude that's going to go get you buckets, and he's going to do a lot of ISO ball. And he started talking. I'm like, whoa, no. Booker does not just do ISO ball. There are so many things in the offense that he does to get the shot off. He rarely plays ISO ball now. He's always coming off of a pick and roll, right, y'all? He's always going to come off of a screen.
I saw him. He was yelling at JaVale McGee to run down the court because he was screening his man for a lob, and it was like and the alley-oop was created by Devin Booker.
Booker. Creating the half-second mismatch off of Zubox.
Yeah. So
because everyone thinks it's going to go to him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he is like, I've seen it. Like, I've watched this guy every game. I've watched most of his career, almost all of his career. And I've seen him evolve from, being a shooter to being a playmaker.
From off the bench, a shooter.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Being a guy coming off the bench to starting in his rookie season to becoming the playmaker and the primary, playmaker on the team. And then, him getting into all sorts of different types of battles with different players individually or with teams. And now he's just a guy. And I think that's what he's always been. He just couldn't show it. Is that he's just a fucking assassin, dude. He just wants to win. And he'll do it any way he has to do it.
He just wants to win. Oh,
he's a showstopper. Like if we're doing a player-to-player analysis between Nash and Booker, I think Book checks about everything over Nash because Nash was a liability on defense. His 3-point shot was very inconsistent.
No, I'll take Steve Nash shooting a basketball over Devin Booker prime any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
I'll take that too. Yes, I'll say Nash, and he said this too, and like when he was cathartic about playing with the Suns and with D'Antoni, he said, like, if he would have played the way Steph Curry played, like, we probably would have won the chip.
Yep.
I mean, he just didn't shoot as much as he needed to.
Dude, he was one of the best shooting point guards of all time. I don't think Booker compares to him as a pure shooter. Dude, what Steve Nash did. I trust if I were to watch a game right now, I would want Steve Nash to have the ball in his hands and shoot the last shot. And so kind of going back, that's kind of why I still choose Steve Nash to a point. But at the same time, it's just different. Nash was crafty, y'all. Nash could do weird things off of opposite foots and just be able to get dudes off. He had everybody on skates. And there are a lot of times where Devin Booker will force things and turn it over and do some weird WTF things. He does do that. I rarely ever saw Steve Nash do that.
That's true. But at the same time, like the height difference and the way they just scored differently, right? Like Nash was crafty in the mid range. He kind of played that Chris Paul game where, he has to have that fadeaway jumper, 12-footer. But if you're talking about Booker, he can score every single possible
He's
way.
a 3-level scorer for sure.
Yeah. But not even just turn around, shoot, the floater, the pull up,
He's good with his left hand too, finishing, by the way. He's so good with his left hand. But Nash could turn anything into a basket. I rarely saw Nash get in trouble, right? He always kept his dribble alive. He always found the other person. I mean, granted, point guard versus shooting guard, different mentalities as well, too. Different style of offense as well. But I just rarely saw Nash do that. And I think there were more iconic Steve Nash games than Devin Booker games. But we've only had one winning season with Booker and the bubble. So, again, give me 2 or 3 years. I'm probably going to change my mind. I'd also like to see Devin Booker just be like a unanimous vote in to the All-Star game, but he just might have that narrative where he's always going to receive all this hate as well too. So I think I bring that into account a little bit. And remember, when we got Steve Nash, we were coming off of Jason Kidd beating his wife and losing in the 2000 opening round to I think it was the Kings or something. Maybe that was 2001. And then we traded Stephon Marbury, and that was absolutely garbage. But we somehow pulled out the playoffs, lost to the 8th seed. The very next year, we do nothing, and then we get Steve Nash, right? So a little bit different as opposed to Booker being drafted here, staying here. There is a little lore with Steve Nash being drafted, traded, then coming back, kind of like a Goran Dragic thing. But Booker staying as well, too, through the thick and thin, and then coming out on the other side. I take a lot into that consideration. But if Booker had more playoff appearances or top 5 MVP vote or unanimous starting for an MVP, we could have a different conversation right now. But for right now, I'm just going to stick with Steve Nash. But that gap is closing quick. 7th player to 10,000. That's incredible. You're talking KD, Magic, MJ, LeBron, Wilt Chamberlain, I'm sure is in there, or Larry Bird or something like that. You're talking a Steph Curry. You're talking amazing players that changed the way basketball is played.
I want to add one more thing just to this conversation, but I got into a little Twitter thing with a couple people. It was the Zach LaVine sort of love, like the Zach LaVine over Booker, Donovan Mitchell over Booker. It was like a stupid fucking thing like that.
Been in many of those. Oh, yeah, by the way, LeBron, Kevin Durant, Kobe, Carmelo, Tracy McGrady, Giannis, Booker.
Crazy list. But so it's like when you really break down the guard position in the West, or even expand it to the East, when you look at stats, like they can definitely say a lot. Like the Zach LaVine guy I was arguing with, he's a freaking tool. Like he is so delusional about what he's watching with Zach LaVine, because Zach LaVine, he can score 48, but he's doing it on 32 shots. So he's not the best shooter. I like Zach LaVine, but he's just not as.
He's never made the playoffs.
He's never made the playoffs. He's not as diverse as Book. He's not as lethal as Booker. And his main point was that how many 50-point games does Booker have? And I'm all like, Booker scored 70, and he's like had a bunch of 40-point games. He scored
48 in the first round of the playoffs in a closeout game. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, exactly. And he had back-to-back 40s in the finals.
And how many playoff appearances does Zach LaVine have?
Right. Exactly. And then it was the same thing with the Donovan Mitchell guy. Zach ain't Book. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't know what that emoji was at first.
But here's the thing. Like, we don't know what Zach LaVine can do in the playoffs because we haven't seen him there. That's kind of the argument. I kind of see the argument, because that was what people were saying about Book.
100%. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I get it.
We don't know.
It's the eye test at the end of the day, because the stuff that we kill Book about, him kind of making like dumb decisions and like just chucking the ball up and getting himself caught up in situations. LaVine is times 10 of that. Like,
yes.
he's forcing it. He's turnover. He's low key close to Westbrook when it comes to turnovers, and he's sloppy. And I don't know if it's just because he's been solo dolo for so long, but like only time will tell. I like Zach LaVine. He's a great player.
I do too.
Donovan. I like Donovan too. I just wish he wasn't on Utah. I think he's a good player, but it's just like don't be blinded by what Sports Center is saying, the First Take is saying, like whatever. Just
if you want to make the comparison, you go look at their efficiency year on year. Every single year, Booker's gotten better and more efficient with everything in his game. So that's how you make the comparison. You look at all those players. Did they get more efficient? I know Donovan Mitchell has gotten better, but
they're averaging the exact same turnovers right now, 2.7 for what it's worth. Zach LaVine was drafted 1 year before. Turnover wise, to start his career, 2.5, 1.9, 1.8, 1.8, and then it jumped up when he went to Chicago, 3.4, 3.4, 3.5 last year, now 2.7. 2.7 for his career. Booker's at 3.2, y'all. Booker had 2.1, 3.1, 3.6, 4.1 in 18-19, 3.8, 3.1 last year, and 2.7 this year. So to speak to Ahmed's point, the efficiency is definitely getting there. The funny thing that I kind of want to bring into is the field goal percentage. I think that's a big thing as well too. Levine beats Booker in both field goal and 3-point field goal percentages as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. But Book does have him on rebounds and assists as well too.
Yeah, I mean, the raw numbers, but like I would.
Book's averaging a steal a game this year for the first time in his career, by the way.
Exactly. I mean, I would look deeper into it. Look at like box plus minus EPM, those numbers. Like I think that's where Booker he's improved every year in terms of his usage versus like points per possession, that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know that much about Zach LaVine other than he's talented. I've seen him put up big numbers and have efficient games again in really big games, but I haven't seen his team win that much other than this year. And, he's surrounded with some players now that make him a little bit more optional to go one-on-one or just run a pick and roll. Yeah. With DeMar DeRozan and these other guys, he can do that sort of thing. But, we'll have to see what they do in the playoffs because they are a playoff team. They are a legit playoff team.
Yes, Iverson. Yeah.
I wanna share this with you guys. I don't know if anybody saw this tonight. Share screen. This is from the Dallas Mavericks Sacramento Kings game tonight. I don't know if anybody saw this. Let's just
shout out IT.
Let's just take a watch.
Is that Fox? Oh. Dang.
For the dub.
Nice.
Wide open in the corner. What was that? There was
watch it one more time.
Who was that? Who took the shot?
De'Aaron Fox going down. Dwight Powell sinks down. Watch Dwight Powell. He was supposed to be guarding the dude.
What a collapse!
He had It was De'Aaron Fox had him beat. If Dwight Powell doesn't sink down, De'Aaron Fox has a bucket right there. Watch.
But isn't there two down?
He's got a clear lane to the path.
Oh yeah, yeah. What was that?
He didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Bad defensive possession. I just wanted to share that. We're going on an hour and 45 minutes on this podcast, and I have no problem doing that tonight because I don't have a job to go to tomorrow anymore, which I'm ecstatic about. But I kind of want to roll through some NBA. I had it up. Some NBA scores here with y'all. Let me make this bigger so everyone can see a little better. There we go. So obviously the Phoenix Suns finally pulled off a W, which I personally needed one. I really needed a win tonight. I just needed to feel that comfort of having that W by that and having the score or the standings go up a little bit, especially after Golden State losing last night. Knicks beat the Pistons and they're clawing back to 500. Meanwhile, Pistons are 5-28 and looking at a top 3 pick right now. Hornets starting to make a couple moves. They're 2 games over 500, 116-108. Clippers pull away against the Celtics, 91-82. Clippers are finally above 500, and Marcus Morris returns for 23-10. Speaking of the Bulls, 131-117 over the Hawks. Trae Young had 26 points, but Nikola Vuce, 16 points and 20 boards. 20
this
boards for
team
him.
Is good.
Hawks are in trouble, man.
Hawks
are in real trouble.
Hawks are in trouble, and the
Hawks,
Bulls are good. It's not last year, and it's a new coach, and Nate McMillan going through a full year. This is the growing pains. I expect them to make a run at the end, though. I really do. Grizzlies beating the Lakers. Ja Morant, 41 points and 10 boards. After that travel last night or 2 nights ago, which we won't get into, he comes out and just puts away the Lakers, which every Phoenix Suns fan will enjoy. The Jazz, without Donovan Mitchell, go up and they take one for the Blazers, 120-105. Rudy Gobert with 14 boards. Damian Lillard with only 32 points, not enough. And then the Kings upset the Mavericks. LOL Mavericks, LOL Lakers, and the Heat Spurs unfortunately postponed due to COVID. So here we are right before the beginning of the year. We went through our all of the stuff going on with the league, and we pulled up what we thought was going to happen at the beginning of the season. But this is when teams are starting to turn it on, and they really need to turn it on. Unfortunately, we're dealing with freaking COVID. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of messy standings, meaning 5 through 11, 12 is just going to be nothing but muck in each conference. And COVID is really taking a toll on these teams, man, and it's sacrificing the integrity of the game. I hate it, but damn, it's really frustrating to this. So I know we got to move on. We've got a little personal conversation we got to take up for the next 5 minutes here, and we need to talk about a top 3 mafia movie. We were on Twitter last night. I think we texted a few times of some of the top mafia movies we have, and I don't care what anybody says. Godfather is number 1 for me, no matter what. I absolutely love The Godfather. Number 1. There's nothing better than that. I mean, I could go upstairs and watch that right now. I love The Godfather.
3 hours?
I would go watch that. I would take out the opening scene where they're all dancing and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I love that movie. After further deliberation, I love Scarface. Scarface it's one of the first true gangster movies that I really remember. And I don't know if I have a third one. So I want to hear what your takes are. And JJ, this was kind of your topic. So go for it. Take the floor just real quick, and then we'll get out of here.
So last night I was rewatching The Irishman. I fried myself up some tamales and eggs, sat down and just started eating, and I was rewatching this movie, and I'm like, God, this movie is so goddamn good. And I just started thinking about just all the other mafia movies, and I tweeted, like, in my opinion, The Irishman is a top 3 mafia movie. And then Amit, he slid on the comment. It was all like, what are the other 2? A couple of question marks. I'm like, oh man, I have some heat on me now. And so I answered with Scarface and The Departed. If you haven't seen The Departed, one of the best movies ever, in my opinion. But then we got into a conversation about, are we going to group together the Italian mafia movies and like hood movies, like Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood,
mafia, straight mob.
Yeah, like straight mob. Okay, so if we're doing straight mob, I'm a big Scarface guy. The Irishman is a great movie, even though how long it is. It's like 3 hours, and it's like 3.5 hours, and it does not feel that way. The cast is amazing. The writing is incredible. And then the Departed, Leo's best performance to me. Jack Nicklaus kills it. And Matt Damon, just hearing him with a strong Boston accent and him just being the way that he was in that movie is incredible.
You are not a co-op.
But those are my top 3 personally. The Godfather is I love the story, but I never connected to the movies in that sense of me putting it at 1. Goodfellas is a great one as well. And Ahmed, would you call Heat a mob movie?
I guess, when you called it a heist movie, it made more sense, because then I started thinking about The Town, because I think The Town is another.
The Town is a great one.
But Town is a heist movie for sure.
Yeah.
I take that back. Number 3 is Road to Perdition for me.
That's a good one.
I haven't seen that one. But I just, Irishman being in the top 3 is just really hard to digest, man. Especially to me, I think Casino is the one that you got to go back and rewatch on that one, because that is top 2.
So good.
Casino.
I had a hard time putting it.
I've seen it, but
go see it again.
It's been a couple years since I've seen it. When I watched it, I was like, this movie is really, really good. But there's something about The Irishman I really connect to. It's just a storytelling, and it's like you're talking to your grandfather, and he's just telling you like everything that's happened. And it was just kind of like this.
But the thing is, the guys in those movies are the same guys in the movies we're talking about, except they're in their prime.
Exactly. That's how great they are. That's how great they are.
And
that's 1,000, man.
So do you consider American Gangster a mafia movie or like a streets movie?
You would have to group it into hood movie, right?
Because it's not strictly mafia,
but they touch on the mob. They touch on mafia.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do, huh? I don't know.
That's
hard.
I like American Gangster more than I like The Irishman, honestly.
Yeah,
and I like Casino too.
I mean,
and I like Road to Perdition.
For my list,
God is good.
Goodfellas is my all-time favorite. Like Goodfellas is my all-time favorite.
Goodfellas is amazing.
Just everything about it. It just drew me into the whole, like, watching all those movies. But yeah, man, like, American Gangster is definitely better than Irishman. Like, that's definitely a better movie.
I don't know, man.
And the CGI, man, they had to CGI these guys' faces to make them look young for the movie. That's distracting.
Yeah, I honestly was having a hard time with that throughout the whole thing, but that's just me.
It didn't really bother me like that. I was just, watching it. But I mean, American Gangster is kind of hard to argue with. But
Love that movie.
It's a great movie, and there's so many good mob movies. It's like there isn't really.
If you've ever seen a Bronx Tale, go see a Bronx Tale. L.A. Confidential is a damn good one as well too. I think that might be more of a police movie. I don't know.
Yeah,
we could have that.
One,
yeah, that's good. And then there's another one I'm trying to think of. That's a big one that I'm just not remember. I mean, Godfather 2 is better than Irishman in my opinion.
The second one's better than the first, in my opinion.
That's what they say. They say I haven't seen either Godfather. Don't get at me at that. I just cannot sit through those movies, dude. I cannot sit through them.
Sit through it one time.
I tried, man. I tried. I fell asleep. Couldn't do it. But they're good. I know. That's why, like, I would always. So when I talk about my movies, I take the general population and say I know that those two movies are considered two of the greatest movies, not just of this genre, but movies of all time. So I have to go with the popular opinion and count those in my top 5, even though I don't know where to rank them.
God, Scarface is so good. I haven't seen that in a long time. I might go check that. So that's been our debate on mafia movies. Take it or leave it. We all kind of agree that there's a consensus here. What do we say? Casino's up there. Road to Perdition's up there. Irishman is up there. Casino, I think I already just said anyways. Godfather. So
if Martin Scorsese directs it, just know it's going to be up there. If you watch a certain movie at a certain time from him, it's going to be up there.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Alonzo.
Appreciate you. Appreciate Iverson Vlogs coming in. We appreciate Roy coming in. We appreciate everybody. And I hope everybody here has an absolute wonderful New Year's Eve, and we all have awesome plans. Go check out the Arizona State Bowl game tomorrow. We got a Suns game Sunday night and Friday night. Big Cardinals game Sunday night. Come check us out. He's on Fire Podcast. See you guys later.
See you guys.